Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything going on in the world of sports. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. He's a statistician to the stars. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
And boy, we actually have a lot to talk about in the land of sports.
Yeah.
It's exciting time because in the United States, it is the March Madness tourney. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're going to kick things off with for the show. But Pat, after the show, we want everybody to go where?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. Swing it over the website. Continue those conversations on all our social media accounts. They're all right there, so you can go subscribe, follow, and interact. We definitely like talking about what we do on the show here after the show. That's how we keep this community thing rolling. Also, make sure to check out the T Public Store link, the Classifieds, which have friends of the show such as 3FM Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative, and many more. The directory. Pat, how many providers are we on?
407,826.
Who's your source?
Trust me, bro.
So that we said, he's Statisticians of Stars for a reason. So wherever you're listening to ODPH on, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. Leave us a review on your favorite podcatcher. It definitely helps the algorithm of the show. Remember to check out the blog section. And last but certainly not least, we have a fantastic music section where all the music you hear on the show, you can go download, follow, and go check out and make part of your collection. And if it's anything else I might have forgotten, because, hey, we do a lot here at the ODPH, the Parlay of Topics.
This is true.
You can find it at odphpodcast.com. And always remember on social media, if you're using hashtags, why not use the hashtag ODPHpod? As I alluded to, it is March Madness time here.
The Ides are here.
Yes, here in North America.
Those of you named Julius Caesar, watch your back.
Yes, indeed, because for 68 teams technically in this massive basketball tournament that we're going to be discussing, it is anybody's chance to come home with the men's and women's basketball championship in college sports.
A little over half of those will get a Thanks for Coming trophy.
Yes. So it is always an amazing time of year. Allegedly,
unless you're a business manager or a boss or a CEO, because for the next couple days, productivity is going through the floor.
Yes. So we always say that there's always an office bracket allegedly around.
Allegedly.
Thursday and Friday are the two biggest missed days of work.
True.
For Pad, why?
Reasons. If you know, you know.
Mm-hmm. But it is always a great time to see the college athletes step up and do some work and really try to carve their own legacy, because this is where you can see somebody really skyrocket into an NBA player that's not on anybody's draft radar, and here we are. It's always a Cinderella story because literally it is just one game and you're out.
Yeah.
There's no second chance.
Yeah.
You have to be perfect. So we're going to break down each bracket, give you our picks on the men's side, and go from there. So, Pat, let's talk about it.
So, we're going to be going from region to region. We are going off of the bracket on ESPN.com. That's ESPN.com/men's-college-basketball /bracket if you want to follow along at home. So starting in the South region, you've got the number one seeded Auburn Tigers waiting to face, well, somebody. The bracket's currently blank because you've got the first four play-in games, which are taking place tonight as we record. The first of which is between number 16, well, they're all 16 seeds. Alabama State taking on St. Francis, Pennsylvania. That is tipping off at 6:40 p.m. Eastern on True TV. Later after that, probably about 30 minutes or so, taking place at 9:10, again, roughly, on True TV is the number 11 seeded taking on the other number 11 seed, San Diego State taking on North Carolina. Then the games on the 19th are the number 16 seeds going up against each other. American taking on Mount St. Mary's. That is at 6:40 p.m. Eastern on where? True TV. And then you've got the two 11 seeds going at it, Texas and Xavier going at it at 9:10 p.m. on True TV. So when I mention, this number one seeds got nobody going up against them, or the number two seeds or whoever got nobody going up against them, it's one of those four teams. But you got the number 1 seeded Auburn Tigers taking on a to-be-determined team in the first round. You've got the number 8 seeded Louisville Cardinals taking on Creighton, so that one's certainly going to the Birds. Michigan at the 5 seed is taking on number 12 seeded UC San Diego. 4th seeded Texas A&M is taking on 13 seeded Yale. If this were a debate contest, well, it would certainly be no debate.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it isn't. Then you've got the number 6 seeded taking on Ole Miss taking on one of the to-be-determined teams. 3 seeded Iowa State is taking on 14 seeded Lipscomb. 7 seeded Marquette is taking on 10 seeded New Mexico. And lastly, in the southern region, 12 seeded. Lord, that'd be a crisis if these guys were 12 seeded. 2 seeded Michigan State is taking on 15 seeded Bryant.
Well, this one is a very solid bracket. I will say I do argue with one thing. Auburn is the number 1 seed overall. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I think that should have gone to Duke. Auburn has had a great season, do not get me wrong. And obviously with Johnny Broom being one of the
Players of the year?
Yes, unanimous All-America selections.
Okay, yep.
So, I mean, they're not, I'm not to say take anything away from
Sure.
them being a number 1 seed. I do
Sure.
think they are worthy of that.
Sure.
But number 1 overall, I do not agree with. So, that said, usually when you're the number 1 seed overall, you have an easier bracket.
Sure. Unless you're Virginia and UMBC a couple of years ago.
Well, that's the one thing that we always talk about. When you play, there's a lot of upsets that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at this bracket, I do think they have an easy punch to the Elite Eight.
Okay.
I really do. I think the only team that could give them some real problems, depending on what happens in their first round game, is number 5 Michigan.
Yeah.
But this is one that I think is going to be a 12-5 upset.
Okay.
I like UC San Diego.
Oh, okay.
They're a hot team right now.
All
They're
right.
flying under a lot of radars. Michigan just came in from winning their tourney.
Yep.
Very tough game against Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
This is one that I think is going to be a real test, and it's going to be a fun one to watch. I know it's late night on the East Coast for it,
Yeah.
but still I'm going to stay up and watch it.
I'll say about the only easy game Michigan had in their last 5 was in the Big Ten tournament against Purdue a couple of nights ago. They beat them 86-68, but then they had back-to-back tough ones. They came in the semifinal against Maryland Terrapins, 81-80 win, and then the championship game, as you alluded to, against Wisconsin, 59-53. So that's not exactly a walk in the park.
Correct. So that all said, I think that if Michigan can get to face Auburn, that'll be the true test right there. I don't necessarily know if they're going to have enough in the tank, though. Like I said, I like San Diego there. I could see, even then we're talking about upsets, I could see Yale sneaking by Texas A&M.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yale, I mean, they play very fundamentally sound basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen in the past where that's worn down a lot of teams that like to do high offense.
Yeah.
So that'll be a challenge to see take place. I think Ole Miss has an easy route. I don't even care who's coming out of the UNC playing game.
Yeah.
Carolina should not be there, in my opinion. No way, no how. They are in. It is what it is.
Sure.
I don't agree with it, but it doesn't matter because, honestly, coming out of this bottom bracket is going to be Tom Izzo and Michigan State.
Okay.
I think Michigan State, I will always go with coaches in situations like this. I think Michigan gets to this final of this bracket, and I think they punch their ticket to the Final Four.
Okay.
Our Michigan State, I think, is going to do this because I don't go against Tom Izzo. He gets his players ready to go, even when they're supposed to have quote-unquote bad years.
Sure.
And I believe, like, at the beginning of the season, they were not projected to be this good.
Not that I can remember, no.
This is a testament to a head coach.
Yeah.
And I say, when you can watch this play out, when you can see a coach really step up and do some motivating like this, and especially with ones that I say, you have a lot of great coaches that come in and can motivate teams and really get them going. This is one that can really make some rounds. And I think that they're, I wouldn't say necessarily flying under radar,
Sure,
but I think this is going to be Auburn's biggest challenge should they get this far. But I think no matter what, Michigan State punch them. They're going.
I do like Michigan beating Texas A&M. I think Michigan will make a decent run, but I just think they've had a few too many close games, and they're the tank's going to be a little. I'm not going to say empty, but it's not going to be as full as you would like it to make a deep run. Because let's not forget. Their first game is going to be on, there it is, March 20th. The championship game is on April 7th. So that's, 3 weeks? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Playing, and I grant it's not every night, and it's not back-to-backs, and it's not, like an NBA schedule. But still, It's taxing. It's emotionally draining. There is almost no time for turnaround and prep work like you might expect during the regular season when you're going one game to the next. And I just think Michigan, you know what, they're going to have a good little run here, but ultimately, they'll make the Sweet 16, but then they're not going to make it out of the Sweet 16. I do like the Auburn Tigers coming out of here just because I like the way they've been playing. I like kind of the overall roundedness they've been going. In terms of upsets, because I'm just looking at my bracket fresh, I filled it out last night.
Yeah.
A couple upsets. I got New Mexico beating Marquette. I mean, listen, Marquette, have they done anything since Dwayne Wade was there 20 years ago? Respect to Marquette. I respect the hustle and I respect the consistency.
They've been solid.
They're solid, but you know what? I like the little upset you got going on there. But out of that, I don't think there's going to be anything too surprising. Although let's not forget, last year there were 2 perfect brackets left on ESPN by the end of the first day. So anything's possible.
This is very true.
Then going down to the Western bracket, you've got the number 1 seeded Florida Gators taking on the 16th seed Norfolk State. 8th seeded UConn is taking on number 9 Oklahoma. 5th seeded Memphis is taking on 12th seeded Colorado State. The 4th seeded Maryland Terrapins are taking on 13th seeded Grand Canyon University. Yes, folks, the commercial you see on TV for that college that, hey, you can take the classes at home and do it on your time. Yeah, hey, they're in the tournament. 6th seeded Missouri is taking on 11th seeded Drake. Made that joke to my wife last night. She had no idea what I was saying. I gotta educate her. Gotta educate her. 3-seeded Texas Tech is taking on 4th-seeded UNC Wilmington. 7th-seeded Kansas is taking on 10th-seeded Arkansas. And then 2-seeded St. John's is taking on Peyton Manning's favorite university, Omaha.
Well, this one, I like the Gators a lot. They really surprised a lot of people. I don't think anybody had them going this far to be a number 1 seed, but they got hot late.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, they've really flown under the radar. This bracket is very simple for them to make a run. I could see a Colorado State beating a Memphis here, though.
Okay.
I think this could be another 12-5 upset.
There's always usually at least one.
Well, because there's a lot of parity in the league. I was talking to a couple of people online about this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like the tourney of yesteryear,
right,
where literally you've been a 1 and 2 seed and it's been a lock that you get far.
Right.
I mean, like you alluded to, Virginia was a number 1 seed a few years ago. They got knocked out by 16.
First ever time it happened in the men's tournament. It's happened a couple times with the women, but that was the first time with the men.
Right. I think the closest before was a 2 seed.
Yeah, 2 seed, and still the most the post game thread on the college basketball Reddit, still the most upvoted thread on that Reddit's history.
Yeah. It's wild, but it's true though.
Yeah.
So you have to take a look at the parity in the league, and I think with Florida, I do think they have a more or less easier path.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on, with UConn, what team is going to show up.
This is true.
I mean, obviously, they built a fine program there. Yeah. But this one, I think, could give them really a lot of problems. I think Florida is going to be very, very tough.
I mean, UConn, decent wins throughout the season. They beat Baylor at home. They beat Texas on the road. They beat Gonzaga at home. Marquette, Creighton, Marquette again. The only 2 notable losses they had was both to St. John's, one at home and one on the road. Both of those were in February.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of St. John's, I mean, let's talk about them for a second.
Holy hell. You want to talk about coming out of nowhere, at least for me.
Salute to Rick Pitino.
Absolutely.
Because everywhere he's gone in college,
dude's got the Midas touch.
He understands the game arguably better than anybody.
Agreed.
And he is one of the greats, if not the greatest college basketball coach of all time.
I'll put him in that conversation.
Like I say, it's an argument.
Yeah.
You can make the argument because every program he's gone to, he's had success winning.
Yeah.
And especially with how the game has evolved since he started coaching. Mm-hmm. To say that with all the program he's gone to, that's truly telling.
Oh, absolutely.
And for him to come back to St. John's, and make this into a powerhouse, which it has not been in quite some years.
Not that I can remember, at least not in my lifetime.
Yeah, but even you take a look at where he's gone in his coaching.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he started off so he was a player at UMass, point guard, from 71 to 74. After that, he was an assistant coach at Hawaii, and then he was the interim head coach in the 1976 season. Assistant coach up at Syracuse from 1976 to 1978, and then he was the head coach at Boston University from 1978 to 1983. Then he was an assistant coach with the New York Knicks from 1983 to 1985 before he went back to college and coached Providence from 1985 to 1987. Back to the NBA for a couple of years, Knicks fans, guard your ears, because he was the head coach with the Knicks from 1987 to 1989. Back to college in the from the late 89 to through 1987. Jesus, I'm losing my place here. 1987 to 1997, where he was with Kentucky. Back to the NBA from 1997 to 2001 with the Boston Celtics. Then, of course, probably his most well-known run. 2001 through 2017 with Louisville. 2018 through 2020, he was with a British Columbia team. It looks like by the name of Panathinaikos. I will look up where they play. Then 2020 to 2023, he was the head coach at Iona. And then 2023 through present, he was the head coach at St. John. Who is this team he played? Oh, it was the Greek League. Oh, okay. So he was the head coach over in Greece. Interesting.
Yeah, I forgot. I mean, he's been traveled. You know what? I thought, honestly, he'd been such a figure in the Big East and such.
Yeah.
I forgot he was at Providence.
Yeah.
Before, because I always thought he was from. He has that New York attitude, so that's why I say
he's moving up and down the court like a fast break.
Right, but like I say, it's kind of wild to think about. But him taking over the St. John's program, and like I say, if you're old enough to remember, and yes, I'm dating myself a bit, when the Big East was the basketball conference.
Oh, I remember that.
You know, it was so stacked in St. John's and Seton Hall and Providence.
Syracuse.
And
like when it was on ESPN proper and every other tournament was getting bounced to ESPN too.
When it was the real deal.
Uh-huh.
Like I say, to come out of there, especially a coach there, like you had to be elite. You had to instill a grittiness into your team.
Yeah.
Patino does that.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's now come to St. John's.
Yeah.
And this has been a program that, I mean, honestly, I can't remember the last time except late 80s, maybe.
Oh, I can look it up. Let's see.
That was in a position like they are now.
So they were tournament runners-up in 1952. They made the last time they made the NCAA tournament Final Four, 1985.
Yeah.
Last time they made the Elite Eight, 1999. Which is also the same time they made the last year they made the Sweet 16. They had made and so the other years they had made appearances. They made appearances in the tournament proper. 2019, 2015, 2011, 2002, 2000, 99, 98, 93, 92, and 91. So they've made appearances, but like it was always like, first couple rounds and hey, thanks for playing.
Yeah, but that's something that when he comes there, he really understood the assignment. And and especially, like I say, to see him come back to college basketball, go to St. John's, make him a 30-4 record.
Yeah.
Like I say, that is truly saying something, and especially when he's still finding the proverbial fountain of youth to do this, and he's connecting with the young team that he has. And when he came in 2023, and I remember that he's paraphrasing the quote, like he said, we're going to make St. John's relevant again.
Yeah.
We're going to make them a winning program.
Good for them.
The fact he's done this, I mean, this is like one of the best storylines going on in college sport, in all sports, to be honest with you.
I always love seeing those posts whenever it's been a while since something's happened. It's like, oh, guess was this price? The biggest movie was this. I'm not going to look up all those up, but I did look up the domestic box office for 1985, which was the last time that the St. John's Red Storm made the Final Four. Top four biggest films at the U.S. box office for 1985. So I'll go 4-1. Number 4, Rocky IV, $89.1 million. Number 3, Rambo First Blood Part 2 with $150.4 million. 2, Beverly Hills Cop, first one, with $157.3 million. And the biggest movie at the box office, the last time the St. John's made the NCAA Final Four, Back to the Future 1, $190.5 million.
It's wild to think about.
Tell you how long it's been.
It is, but it shows, obviously, when they were rolling in that late 80s.
Yeah.
Like, that's when they really were making some noise.
Oh, yeah.
And now, to see them come back in this manner, like I say, it's such a major story.
Well, and especially you think back then, and this is true not just for St. John's, but for most basketball and most college sports, too. There was a little bit more, parity with the teams where it wasn't like, oh, hey, I need to go to Duke or Kentucky or Michigan State. And I'm certainly by no means shitting on those teams. It's just as a fan, of a team that, listen, I'm a Syracuse fan. They've had some success, but it ain't been a ton of success in some of these programs. But you look at what it is now. It's like they have to go to one of the big 10, and I'm not talking the conference, but one of the top 10 college basketball schools, then it was, hey, you don't necessarily need to.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting stories that always goes on now, and especially the myth is getting smashed because I will tell you right now, I have Florida and St. John's in the final for this bracket.
Okay.
And I really think that this is going to be a heavyweight bout. Like, you can't tell me otherwise.
Okay.
And then I know this might sound sacrilege because if you know me well, you know I love the Florida Gators. As far as football, like that was, the team I grew up watching with my late father.
Yep.
But I tell you what, I think this is going to be Patino's year to get to the 4.
I agree 100%. I've got Patino and St. John's in the Final Four.
Yeah, it's nothing against, Todd Golden and the team that's built in Florida right now.
Right.
They could win this. I'm not saying that they're not going to. But I truly feel that this is going to be the, the seasoned veteran, the somebody teaching how to get this done. Like, I'm trying to find a good way to paraphrase this a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is just, age and wisdom, over experience.
Sure.
Like I say, this is something that, Florida has a great team, and they can definitely do it. And I'm sure that they're going to go in, and I'm sure that that's all they're hearing.
Probably.
So they're going to get fired up about it. I'm not doubting that one bit. But in comparison to Patino, and I think the fact that they're going in and literally has the entire nation watching them because it's Patino.
Yeah.
He's going to have them ready to go.
They are a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, they're going to be absolutely incredible to watch. And like I say, this is going to be the true challenge of what is going to head into here. So we'll have to kind of see how this all plays out.
Oh, yeah.
But I am excited to see this final go down.
Yeah, so like I said, I've got St. John's reaching the Final Four out of this. I don't think I've got too many upsets. Let me look again. No, not too many upsets. I do have Florida losing in the Sweet 16 to Maryland because, hey, upset, and plus I saw a little statistic that in the last 3 years, number ones have lost 3 of 5 meetings with 4 seeds. And then prior to that, they were 9-0 between 2015 and 2021. So, you know what? There's going to be an upset of one. I've had a couple of years where I've done all 4 number 1 seeds make it to the tournament. It's happened all of maybe one time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen all that often. Moving next over to the Midwest bracket, you've got the number 1 seeded Houston taking on 16 seeded SIUE. 8 seeded Gonzaga taking on number 9 seeded Georgia. That one's going to the Dogs. 5th seeded Clemson taking on 12th seeded McNeese. 4th seeded Purdue taking on 13th seeded High Point.
Who?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. 6th seeded Illinois taking on a team to be determined. 3 seeded Kentucky taking on 14 seeded Troy. 7 seeded UCLA taking on 10 seeded Utah State. 2 seeded Tennessee taking on 15th seeded Wofford. So this is the thing. I brought it up with you, and I sent you a text last night when I was filling out my bracket because this was the first proper time I had looked at the entire bracket. I saw who the 4 number 1s were. I looked to see if Syracuse had gotten in because I didn't think they would, but hey, weirder stuff's happened, especially this year.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a glance, but I didn't fully look at it. And I started filling out, and as I'm going through the bracket, I'm getting down to this region, and I'm looking at going, now, full disclosure, I have filled out brackets for fun, never done any pools or money or anything, just for fun since I was in high school 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've done it pretty consistently. There might have been a couple years I forgot to do one, but at least I looked at the bracket and I knew who the teams were. And again, no disrespect to any of these teams or if you're a listener who goes to one of these schools. Who in the bloody hell are some of these teams? SIUE. I had to look them up. That's like some IUPUI type stuff. Indiana University, Purdue University, Indiana. I looked this one up. I never even heard of them. Okay, McNeese. Who? High Point. Who? GCU, I'll give them credit because I've seen the commercials online and they do kudos to their marketing department.
Oh, sure.
Because I've heard of them. Lipscomb? Who? It sounds like some city from over in Germany.
It goes back to the parity, though.
Yeah?
That's the thing.
Yeah?
You're seeing a lot more upsets and tourneys to get that automatic bid.
Sure.
So I think that when we're seeing this all play out, I mean, this just goes to the excitement of the game because
sure.
literally anybody can win this.
Absolutely.
You just have to get hot at the right time.
Yeah.
And I could see an upset of McNeese over Clemson. I could.
Oh, yeah. Hello, George Mason.
Yeah. Or High Point or Purdue. High Point, if memory, and please hashtag ODPH it. If they have something like one of the best defensive percentages in all the league for shutting teams down.
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so like I say, you have a team that comes in and can make some noise like that, you're really going to cause some fits in a tourney, and this is where you can see some brackets get busted. I mean, the only thing with this bracket right here that I have, and I don't know why. I wish I had a better reason. I'm just going to say reasons. I have Gonzaga beating Houston.
Really?
To get to the Elite Eight.
Okay.
But I think when the smoke clears out of this entire division, I think it's going to be Mark Pope in Kentucky punching their ticket to the Final Four, trying to make a run for, I believe, number 9.
That'd be something like that.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be maybe not the one that's got all the headlines. I don't think that there's anything really here like we referenced with Rick Pitino coming back in St. John's.
Sure.
Or even like the matchup in the first there with Auburn and Michigan State and Tom Izzo.
Right.
This one, I mean, Houston is a solid program. They've been making some noise past couple of years to really elevate their level per se. But I don't think there's any team in here that really is jumping out at me with like that wow factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one upset I've got in this bracket or this region is Utah State beating UCLA 10-7. But that's because, honestly, for me, and maybe this is just the East Coast in me, UCLA really hasn't done anything since Russell Westbrook was there.
Yeah.
So they're good. Hey, you're good enough. You got the 7 seed, but you haven't really done anything to super impress me. So, I've got Utah State beating UCLA. But I think in terms of the rest of this bracket, for at least the first round, it's pretty much rock chalk, as they like to say.
Tyler Mack is happy for you.
Exactly.
But like I say, this could really go either way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, so out of this region for the Final Four, I have got Houston coming out of this. Then we get to the last region, and that is the East, where we've got some team named the Duke Blue Devils. You might have heard of them. They're the number 1 seed. They're waiting on the winner of the 16-seeded game. But hey, doesn't matter. It's going to be Duke. 8-seeded Mississippi State is taking on the number 9-seeded Baylor. 5-seeded Oregon taking on the 12th-seeded Liberty. 4th-seeded Arizona is taking on 13th-seeded Akron. 6th-seeded BYU is taking on the 11th-seeded VCU. 3-seeded Wisconsin is taking on 14th-seeded Montana. 7th-seeded St. Mary's is taking on 10th-seeded Vanderbilt. And then the 2-seeded Alabama Crimson Tide is taking on 15th-seeded Robert Morris.
I mean, this is all Duke.
Yeah.
I would say if there's any safe pick, Cooper Flagg is cleared to come back.
Oh, I was curious about that.
Yeah, I believe that they
I was making my picks last night based on the assumption he would play.
Yeah. So, arguably the number 1 pick in the draft next year for the NBA. Arguably. Unless
he's going to be eligible.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's after 1 year, I believe.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
For the NBA.
Sorry,
so,
I forgot they got rid of the 3.
Yeah, they got rid of the time delay for it.
Okay, yep.
I think they're going to want to make a statement. I think he understands the pressure of this.
He understands the assignment, as the kids like to say.
Well, when you go to a program like Duke, and let's face it, you are there to win. Mm-hmm. Not coming home with the tourney is considered the season's a failure.
It's like the Yankees.
Yeah, legitimately. And from what Coach K has built up to John Shire now taking over as head coach, they understand. And I think a lot of fans were waiting to see what was going to happen with this team. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so. Coach K leaves. Is Shire the replacement? Because obviously when you have a legendary coach, sometimes the successor is not the perfect fit.
Oh, absolutely. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shire, I think, has come in there and, with Newell and Evans.
There's been some success.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what they want, but, they've done well.
Yeah, they've done well enough that they have got some players that can complement Flagg. Mm-hmm. And when they go through and do this is really going to show if Flagg's the real deal, because I think in his situation, and hear me out when I say this.
Okay.
To see a situation like when Kevin Durant was at Texas.
Sure.
It just depends on how bad he wants it.
Sure.
Because like Kevin Durant was one and done with Texas, and I know they got knocked out super early in the playoffs or the tourney.
Right.
So that said, what does Flagg want? Mm-hmm. And you have to really kind of put that into perspective. And I think for him, he wants to have that chip won.
Sure.
He wants to go down that, if they wind up doing this, this is going to be how they play and really and make that statement. And I think that if they can do that with Proctor and company, too, like I say, there's enough pieces around that they can make some stuff happen.
Right.
And I think that looking at the rest of that bracket, they should have been the number 1 seed overall. Mm-hmm. I still think they have a very, very winnable bracket outright.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that they'll have some problems maybe until you start diving into that, if Arizona gets past Oregon in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I'm thinking at least the Elite Eight before they really run into issues.
Yeah, I do too. I think if they have to face Arizona that late, depending on who comes out of that game, because I think I like both Oregon and Arizona to advance.
I do too, and I picked Oregon to beat Arizona just because every year it seems, or at least the last couple of years, it seems like everyone's like, oh my God, Arizona, it's their year. This is their year to do it all, and then they let out a wet fart.
Well, that's the whole problem that I think. Arizona's had great teams, but I also go back to who you play.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, maybe this is one time I don't do the unbiased commentary.
Okay.
I think if you play in the ACC for basketball, it's one of the toughest divisions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You can do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's same thing like when it was the Big East, when it was the real Big East, not the nonsense you have.
Yeah.
I think if you play out west, is there really that tough basketball division there?
I mean, I'm looking at the notable results they had. The Arizona, what are they, the Wildcats? Yeah, Wildcats had. Lost to Duke 69-55. They beat the Baylor Bears 81-70. Beat the Iowa State Cyclones 86-75. Beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders 82-73. Lost to the Houston Cougars 62-58. Lost to the Iowa State Cyclones 84-67. Beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders 86-80 and lost to the Houston Cougars 72-64. So decent schools, but not exactly the powerhouses of college basketball.
Right. And I think
outside Houston.
But granted, do they have a shot to win? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, anybody's got a shot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not discrediting them.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying if I have to do the litmus test on paper, I look for who you play, who's your coach.
Yeah.
Because those are the two things that are going to get you through this. If you can battle adversity through the season, you're going to come out stronger.
Yeah.
And especially if you have a great head coach to guide you, that's going to help.
Yeah.
So that's why I say with this bracket, I know it's going to sound very disrespectful, but I think this is a lock for Duke to get to the Final Four.
Barring some sort of and I'm not wishing it,
right?
Bizarre injury, happenstance, lane violation.
I mean, personally, would I play Flag even if he says he's good to go on a first round? No. Yeah, I would sit him.
I'd keep him on a minutes limit.
No, exactly. Maybe a minute's just say he was there.
Just keep him fresh, get him acclimated to game time speed.
Yeah, but I think after that, no, I think you don't need him for that first round game. But I think if you put Cooper Flag in there and let him go and let him dictate the pace, I think he can outright win this division by himself with the team he has around him.
Could be.
So that's why I say, I think for this, I think this is a no-brainer. I think maybe you could see Alabama give them a run if they get that far. I like VCU in an upset to go to go make a deep run.
VCU is my Cinderella in my bracket because I've got them going to the Elite Eight. I've got VCU beating BYU in the first round, going up against Wisconsin in the second round or the round of 32, beating 3-seeded Wisconsin. But then they're going to run into a buzzsaw when they face 2-seeded Alabama, and you ain't running that gauntlet.
I am showing you my bracket right now because I have not shown you this. This is true.
This is true.
Who else do I have in the lead 8?
Oh, shit. Look at that.
Yeah.
VCU and Bama.
I have VCU, too. Yeah. I think what Ryan Odom's got down there in that program, I think they're playing very well.
Yeah.
They're flying, I think, a lot under a radar.
Oh, yeah, they are.
So I think they just needed a chance to make a run. Now, do I think they're going to knock off Duke? Absolutely not.
No.
But can they get there? In the bracket seeding they have right now, yes, I think they could fully outright beat Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
However, it's to be debatable.
Yeah.
Because they might be facing St. Mary's, too.
Yeah, it could be.
St. Mary's could be a big upset for them, too. So Alabama's got to play very tight. Mm-hmm. But end of the day, I think win, lose, or draw, Duke is going to be my last team in the Final Four.
Yep. So just to recap, my Final Four, I've got Auburn, St. John's, Duke, and Houston.
Mine, Michigan State, St. John's, Duke, and Kentucky.
Okay.
And then we do the breakdown. I think Duke rolls over Kentucky.
Okay.
I would say by about 10 points.
Probably.
I'm going to say I just think that they'll be in that zone. Kentucky will give them a good run, but this is not like a dominant Kentucky of years past. Mm-hmm. The heavyweight bout is going to be Tom Izzo versus Rick Pitino.
Oh, Lord.
oh my God, get your popcorn ready. This is going to be something. If you're an aspiring coach, you're going to want to watch this. If you have a young team, like in high school or younger, have them watch this game.
Oh yeah,
this is going to be back and forth. By single digits, I have Rick Pitino winning.
Okay.
And then it's St. John's and Duke for me.
Oh boy.
And I think, unfortunately, Cinderella loses her slipper. This is Duke's year. I think what happened is the NCAA did not give him number 1 seed overall.
Chip on the shoulder.
That's going to piss him the hell off.
Probably.
Cooper Flagg knows about this. In fact, him getting told that he has to sit out is only going to fire him up that much more.
Yeah.
And he knows this is legacy. If he wins the chip here, not to say that he wasn't a lock already, but he cements himself.
Oh, sure.
As the number 1 pick for the NBA draft.
Oh, sure.
There is much pressure riding on his shoulders. St. John's is a great story. Hell, this could be Florida for all we know.
Could be.
Either way, I think there's more pressure on Duke to pull this off than anybody else in the tourney. And I think they're going to rise up to it. I really do. I think they're going to have a phenomenal run. I think that they're going to have some trouble. This is not going to be exactly as easy as I'm saying.
Sure.
They're going to win some games by single digits.
Sure.
I think, though, this final game, I like them over St. John's by 6.
Okay.
So we'll have to see what happens.
So I've got Duke beating Houston. Like, I agree with you. ACC is one of the hardest conferences in college basketball to play. Duke certainly battle-tested. Houston, yeah, they've got an impressive record. And you look at their notable results. Okay, yeah, they beat Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Arizona. Their only losses Auburn and Alabama. But you just think and look at the run Duke has had. They beat Arizona, they beat Auburn, Pittsburgh, Illinois, UNC. Battle-tested, battle-ready. And like you said, chip on their shoulder is the X factor. So I think Duke's going to end up beating Houston. And then I've got Auburn beating St. John's. I mean, listen, no disrespect to St. John's. Rick Pitino's put on a hell of a run, and both of these teams have played nothing. If you look at their notable results, have played nothing but tournament teams. St. John's, they lost to Baylor, but they beat Marquette, UConn, Creighton, UConn again, Marquette twice. So they beat Marquette 3 times in a season, and oh, by the way, they beat Creighton twice in a season. But you look at Auburn, and don't get me wrong, St. John's, impressive run, impressive notable results. But you look at the run Auburn was on. They beat the Houston Cougars. They beat the North Carolina Tar Heels. They lost to Duke by a couple points there. They beat the Tennessee Volunteers. They lost to the Florida Gators. They beat Alabama, but then lost to Alabama, and they lost to Tennessee. And those are all, with the exception of, North Carolina, all upper echelon, high-seeded teams in this bracket. So they're battle tested, they're battle ready. So I think it's going to be Auburn and Duke in the Final Four. And unlike, or much like the game they had back in December, December 4th, 2024, where Duke beat them 84-78. I think it's going to be a similar end result with Duke winning the tournament. I think it's going to be, I agree with you. No matter who it is, I think it's going to be Duke, and I think it's not going to be a blowout. I think it's probably going to be 10, 11-point win. But it's going to come down to the end, and it's not going to be like, oh, they're up 10 and they're cruising. They're going to grind for that lead, and it's going to come down to the wire.
I do too. Like I say, this is going to be one for the ages. I am super excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got to talk quickly about the women's tourney too going on.
Oh, boy.
Because there's some fireworks going on with this. And especially a surprise, at least in my book.
Oh, sure.
For the number 1 seed overall.
Yeah.
Is not South Carolina. It's UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA is the number 1 overall seed in the first region. Yeah, they are going up against the 16-seeded team to be determined, but hey, it's going to be UCLA. You've got the 8-seeded Richmond Spiders taking on the 9-seeded Georgia Tech. Ole Miss taking on Ball State. 4-seeded Baylor taking on Grand Canyon University. Made it in both tournaments. Good for them. 6-seeded Florida State taking on 11-seeded George Mason. 3-seeded LSU taking on 14-seeded San Diego State. 7-seeded Michigan State taking on 10th-seeded Harvard. And then you got 2-seeded NC State taking on Vermont.
Well, I like UCLA in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they're.
I like UCLA and LSU. Those two are probably going to make it.
Yeah,
pretty far.
Yeah, I would say.
I would say collision course Elite 8. Yeah.
You could. I would say. I would mark down UCLA getting there. It's not like I say. It'll be a challenge.
Oh yeah.
but it's definitely going to be one to, keep an eye on per se.
Then in the second region, you've got the 1-seeded South Carolina Gamecocks taking on 16-seeded Tennessee Tech, 8-seeded Utah taking on 9-seeded Indiana, 5th-seeded Alabama taking on 12th-seeded Green Bay, 4th-seeded Maryland taking on 13th-seeded Norfolk State, 6th-seeded West Virginia taking on a team to be determined. Then you got 3-seeded North Carolina taking on 14th-seeded Oregon State, 7th-seeded Vanderbilt taking on 10th-seeded Oregon, and then 2-seeded Duke taking on 15th-seeded Lehigh.
So this one, we can kind of go a little back and forth about.
Okay.
But
I think it's going to be South Carolina. Otherwise, I might have some family members and relatives disown me. I got family in South Carolina. That's the whole reason I'm taking this.
Like I said, we could make a debate, but I mean, honestly, there isn't one. I'm really just trying to find some way to give everybody else in that tourney a chance.
Oh, sure.
Dawn Staley is still the head coach of South Carolina, correct?
This is true.
She didn't get the number 1 seed. She's mad.
Uh-huh.
She's big time mad.
Uh-huh.
There is no chance that they do not go to the Final Four.
Oh, absolutely.
They are going to make a statement in each game they play.
Uh-huh.
Duke does not have a chance. North Carolina does not have a chance. West Virginia does not have a chance. It doesn't matter who's coming out of this. This is South Carolina all day. And what's left in the fallout is going to be tremendous. I'm saying you might see some double-digit wins.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their notable results for the South Carolina Gamecocks. They beat NC State 71-57. They beat Duke 81-70. Texas Longhorns 67-50. The LSU Tigers 66-56. Texas again 64-45. Couple losses. UConn 87-58. Texas 66-62. And then they lost to UCLA 77-62. But yeah, no, there's still a chip on that shoulder.
There's a big chip. So South Carolina all day in this one.
Yeah.
All day.
Agreed 100%. Region 3, you've got 1-seeded Texas taking on an opponent to be determined. 8-seeded Illinois taking on 9th-seeded Creighton. 5th-seeded Tennessee taking on 12th-seeded South Florida. 4th-seeded Ohio State taking on 13th-seeded Montana State. 6th-seeded Michigan taking on a to-be-determined team. 3-seeded Notre Dame taking on 14th-seeded SF Austin. 7th-seeded Louisville taking on 10th-seeded Nebraska. 2-seeded TCU taking on 15th-seeded Fair Dixon.
I will say this will probably be the big upset for me.
Okay.
I'm taking Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of the same thing. They've always been impressive, but always overshadowed, especially the last couple of years. You know, they had the UConn Husky days, you know, where it was Gino Auriemma practically winning the damn thing every single year.
Yeah.
You know, then you had LSU making their runs, South Carolina making their runs. They've always been, it feels like, you know, not necessarily the belle of the ball, but like, hey, everyone's giving them a look, but they just don't get there.
Yeah, this one I think has got to be Notre Dame.
Agreed.
I think it's now or never for that program.
Yeah.
Texas will give them a run. I could see that being the matchup for the Elite Eight,
Yeah,
but Notre Dame is going to punch their ticket.
Yeah. And then the final region, Region 4, number 1 seeded USC taking on 16-seeded UNC Greensboro. 8th-seeded California taking on 9th-seeded Mississippi State. 5th-seeded Kansas State taking on 12th-seeded Fairfield. 4th-seeded Kentucky taking on 13th-seeded Liberty. 6th-seeded Iowa taking on 11th-seeded Murray State. 3-seeded Oklahoma State taking on 14th-seeded FGCU, Florida Gulf Coast University, for those of you who don't know. 7th-seeded Oklahoma State taking on 10th-seeded South Dakota State. And number 2-seeded UConn taking on 15th-seeded Arkansas State.
Surprising to see Gino Auriemma and the Huskies as a number 2, but
yeah.
I don't doubt them at all.
No.
So I'm going to say that they are going to pull off the bracket here.
Yeah.
I think they'll give some teams some run for the money.
Oh, yeah.
But like I say, I think with Gino being still there, you can't rule them out. You just can't.
I mean, that's the rough thing with especially the women's side of college basketball. That upper echelon is just a gauntlet run of performance and excellence and just absolute insanity, because you look at the UConn Huskies record, 31-3. 18-0 in conference.
Yeah.
Their only losses were to Notre Dame in mid-December, 79-68. Also in December, they lost to USC, 72-70. And then in February, they lost to Tennessee, 80-76. So literally, they lost one game by 9 points, lost the other game by 2 points, and lost the third game by 4 points.
Yeah.
The rest of them are all wins, and some of them handedly. Hello, Seton Hall, 91-49 loss.
Yeah. So, like I say, UConn definitely locked that one up.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you get to the Final Four,
Mm-hmm.
and it's UCLA, UConn. On the one side, I think you and I both agree about that.
Agreed there, yep.
And on the other side, I think you and I actually agree on both.
I think so, yeah.
South Carolina and Notre Dame.
I mean, listen, if I don't put South Carolina there, my relatives might disown me.
Well, coming out of that, I'm going to say UConn is going to punch their way to the final game.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, this is all Dawn Staley's team. And
Dawn Staley's got a chip on her shoulder like you would not believe.
So I think the finals, we both got UConn and South Carolina.
Yep.
And I think that anger is going to lead
a
chip.
Oh, yeah.
To a chip. So I like South Carolina in the win.
Yeah, I do too.
So, wow, we kind of paired up on that very well.
Did.
I just think that
It doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, it does not very much here if you're a longtime listener to ODPH. I just think that with Dawn Staley now being that fired up, she's going to have her team ready to go.
Did you see the jacket she showed up to on College Game Day when the black leather Eagles won? Good Lord.
Yeah, no, like I said,
That was awesome.
She's going to have her team ready to rock, and it's still going to be fun basketball. Like, there's no question about it. So we'll just have to tune in and make sure to tune to give your picks too, because like I say, it's still some time to fill out some brackets depending on where you're listening to in the world.
Yep.
But in the meantime, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. It's March Madness. Who is taking home the championship for the men's and women's bracket in college basketball? Let's talk about it, shall we? But we're going to get a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do you like comic books?
What about movies and TV shows?
Well, we may be the show for you.
We're Hops Geek News, a weekly podcast that discusses comics, movies, and TV shows while featuring a beer of the week.
Every week we chat about what we messed up on the week before, and then we dive into what we're reading and watching, as well as some news.
We then wrap it up with a geek-themed topic of the week.
You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts by searching Hops Geek News.
Cheers.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we have to recap. The European tour is starting for the WWE.
Yeah, they were in Brussels for Monday Night Raw. They were over in Europe still for SmackDown. They're in Italy this upcoming Friday. The Monday Night Raw is going to be in Glasgow, Scotland. Next week's Friday Night SmackDown is going to be in London, where Monday Night Raw will also emanate from. They return stateside on the April 4th edition of SmackDown in Chicago, Illinois, and then Monday Night Raw will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota on April 7th. So for the next couple weeks, stateside here for Monday Night Raw, it's going to be on at like 3 in the afternoon or whatever it is. They're going to announce it. And then earlier start times across the globe because you lucky sons of guns get it all on Netflix.
Yes. So definitely make sure you check your TV streaming times to make sure you don't miss out on the action. But we're going to recap the weekend that was because the crowds were hot, and so was the action in a few certain spots there.
Yeah, going to talk SmackDown, and really SmackDown was kind of an
Yeah, it was kind of a warm-up show.
Yeah.
Crowd was very excited for what they saw.
Yeah, crowd was excited, but I guess the main thing everyone's talking about was the tag team title matchup between DIY and the Street Profits, DIY defending their belts, and your new SmackDown, whatever they are, tag team titles, champions are Street Profits for like the first time. What did they say, like 3-4 years?
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Well, I think they've teased about breaking them up a few times. They know they paired them with Bobby Lashley to do their faction for a little bit there.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and I think everybody really forgot how great of a tag team they were. So to see them paired in DIY, which the overall tag team division is improving in WWE.
Agreed.
We have to give it time to really kind of get back to the limelight that it once was.
Yeah.
But they're taking steps in the right direction. I usually get mad when they play hot potato with the tag team titles.
Sure.
But I think this is actually building up for what I'm assuming they're going to do is a big ladder match.
Between either the SmackDown tag titles or the Raw ones.
Yeah. Or it could be both. And I don't necessarily know if they would go with universal ones again.
No,
just
not
make
this
one
soon.
belt. But I could see them also doing another kind of belt stuff if they wanted to. But something has to give there. Like I don't think they'd have both defended on the same match. So
No, we'll see.
we'll definitely see about that.
And you get to Monday Night Raw, where that was the hotter of the two shows.
Oh, easily.
Good Lord, that one taking place in Brussels, over in Belgium, where John Cena started the show. Now, this was, of course, the subject of a lot of intrigue and a lot of conversation. What's he going to look like? Is his music going to change? How's he going to talk on the mic? And while in his own words, you don't deserve it. Came out to his traditional music, came out in his traditional clothes, although, hey, he did wear the Brussels-specific shirt, still shilling that merch. Cut one hell of a promo, gotta say. I know some people had mixed reactions to the promo online. I dug it, though, to a certain degree, and to a certain extent, I could see where they were coming with it, and I'm like, I can understand this.
Well, the promo was to really establish himself as a heel to the European crowd. And the crowd in general, I should say.
Oh, that crowd was electric.
But that crowd was definitely waiting for it, and it made sense for what Cena had to do.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, he wants to really try getting rid of 20 years of him being the face that runs the place, the one that's set the record for the most Make-A-Wishes.
Make-A-Wish right now in shambles.
Yeah. So I understand what he's trying to do.
Sure.
And I think it worked to a degree. However, when Cody came out to confront him, I think maybe Cody caught him off guard. Maybe Cody caught everybody off guard.
When's the last time you saw John Cena left speechless? It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I think in this situation, Cody understood what he needed to do. And I think, for lack of a better term, he didn't want to get buried.
Sure.
And I think that a lot of people, including yours truly,
Sure.
have said it's an automatic slam dunk. Cody's losing the belt at Mania.
Sure.
With that promo, Cody did what he should be doing.
Sure.
And that is still making himself a character that is given that kind of sense of he might win at Mania.
Sure.
And I think that he went out of his way to give Cena a taste of his own medicine. I think that might have thrown John off a little bit.
I think so.
But I think you also have to remember, Cody is born of a wrestling family. He understands the stakes when it comes to establishing a character, and especially him being the top face in the company.
Yep.
He is not willing to go quietly at the end of this run, nor should he.
Yep.
So now it just depends on how Cena comes back to face him.
Yeah. I dug and I understood the Cena promo to an extent because, it's basically, I know a lot of people use it's an abusive relationship, but the way I kind of looked at it is for 20 whatever years it was, because he had a pretty consistent run outside of injuries, from when he first made the main roster, coming up from, OVW.
Yep.
Through 2019, give or take. And then he went away. He started doing Hollywood, and he started doing movies, and he went, more of the Hollywood route. He made occasional appearances, but his last serious, consistent run was from 2002, 2001, whatever it was, through 2019. So do the math. And he was there every single night, every single house show, barring injuries.
Yep.
Make-A-Wishes, special appearances with the, they do the VIP packages where you can meet a superstar backstage. You do the meet and greet, get the photo, shake the hand, talk to him for a couple minutes. Always did those. We always see the videos of him signing all of the pictures and signing the belts and signing the this and the that. Like, always gave the time, always gave the this. And you look at the crowd reactions, and for a lot of those years, partly memeing, partly they genuinely believe that, singing John Cena sucks. And everyone talked about the golden shovel and this and that. And he kind of cut this promo where he's saying, I gave all this and it was never enough for you. It wasn't. So in that instance, I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand where he's coming from on this. It's not exactly connecting as hard as I would like it to.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly, 100% matching with me, but I'm at 75%. I'm most of the way there. I'm like, okay, I can see this and I can understand this. But no, I agree. I loved when Cody came out, that the crowd was chanting Cody, Cody, Cody. He's like, yeah, see, you're proving my point. You're ready to put this old battered, paint chip toy out to the trash because you want to play with a bright, shiny new one. And then Cody comes out and cuts one whale of a promo on John. And he goes, listen, I was excited to face you, but I don't, and I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think I'm going to be facing you. I don't know who you are, but you're not the guy on that shirt. So you better find yourself because I want to face John Cena, not whoever this is.
Yep.
It was incredible.
It was brilliant.
And it's a good segment when the show's not even over yet and WWE puts the full segment up on YouTube within minutes.
Well, they knew, I think they had a plan ready, but I don't think that they were expecting the reaction they got.
Sure.
And I think they definitely threw him out. Like, I'm sure they're expecting a buzz of some sort, but I don't think they were expecting Cody to win outright. And It almost gave me a sense that, like, the way he was going about it is like, are we going to do a double switch? Like, Cena's going to go back to being a face and Cody's going to be the heel? I mean, there was kind of teetering at some point.
Sure.
So
I don't think so, though.
I mean, I hope not. No.
No,
In this situation, no. It makes a lot more sense.
It would make no sense for Cody, just storyline-wise, to tell Rock to go F himself.
Yeah.
And then less than 6 months later, be like, hey, you know what? Just kidding. I'm going to buy into what you're selling.
It's wrestling, you know.
Logistically makes no sense.
Yeah.
First match we had on the card, though, was a hell of a match. And that was the holds barred match between Ludwig Kaiser and Penta. Holy shit, Penta was over.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Good match, though. Penta ended up beating Kaiser.
Great match.
Yeah.
Excited to see this get ran back. Penta is super over.
Oh, my God.
No question about that.
Oh, my God.
No question.
Man, I know they teased, Ray Phoenix coming to probably SmackDown.
Him and Aleister Black both.
Aleister Black, you know, they had the promos on SmackDown. I'll be honest. I wanted to see Ray Phoenix and Penta together in a WWE match tag team. You might not need to do it quite right now. You want to keep Penta on his own for a while and then eventually build it up to them uniting to face some common evil. Hey, I'm all right with that. But no, Penta super over. Also made it declared and well known he wants to go for the Intercontinental Championship.
Him and Braun Breaker, if they keep it 1-on-1, is going to be a fantastic Mania match.
Yeah, it will be. You had Dakota Kai taking on Ivy Nile in a match where Kai ended up defeating Nile. It was fine.
It was fine. I mean, it's to establish more of the Chad Gable as return storyline.
Although it's not really Chad Gable.
Yeah,
allegedly
the masked luchador who pops in later too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm excited to see what they're doing. Chad Gable does no wrong in my eyes, so getting him on TV in any way, shape, or form. It is curious to see how this fits in with Ivy Nile's story because obviously they've been positioning her to face Lyra for the Intercontinental title. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays.
Although I do got to give credit, Ivy Nile's German suplex.
Yeah,
Holy
crazy
shit. And kind of the moment for me that was kind of like, why are we doing this? Jey Uso and Austin Theory didn't really hit with me.
Well, here's the thing: you have to get Jey Uso in front of the crowd, everybody, because that's now a moment. Yeah. Not the greatest moment of all time, though. He did not clear the top rope for his flip, which I know the internet was losing their mind about. Listen, it happens from time to time. It's called a high risk move for a reason.
Yeah.
But it was just to get in and out. Like they say, that's why he beat Theory so quick. So, it is what it is.
You had the Creeds taking on LWO with Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio defeating the Creeds. This whole thing, and especially when you factor in the New Day aspect of things, I just don't understand what the hell they're doing. Because it's kind of like we have no idea, but we have to give you TV time.
Well, that's the thing. I think now with the tour over in Europe, they want to showcase as many superstars as they can. And I think that's brilliant because you want to get everybody in front of the audience. And in this kind of match, I don't want to say it's filler, but I think to get people screen time, it definitely helps.
Sure.
And I think that this is one that they really wanted to give some time to, especially with Rey Mysterio. So, listen, I get it. I understand what you're saying, though, with the storyline point. It really is not going anywhere, but they're also going to do a big reset when they get back overseas.
We did have a backstage segment with AJ Styles and Karrion Kross. Shout out to the Brussels crowd for this one, too, because they did that same chant they did in Lyon, France. That was awesome. But Karrion Kross furthering, and if you paid attention to his shirt, the little puppet manipulation. And as he told his wife, Scarlett Bordeaux, yes, sorry, folks on the internet that didn't know, they're married. I think it's working. I love what they're doing with Karrion Kross. It's phenomenal.
They just got to get him in the ring.
Also, nice to know Karrion Kross didn't get arrested in Brussels for trying to find whoever it was. I forget the actor.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Thank you. He was trying to find Jean-Claude Van Damme and allegedly assaulted a person that was not Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. Nice to see he was able to make the show.
He is understanding how to work the internet wrestling community, and that's great. Like I say, work with them, I should say, rather not work them. But he's doing the little stuff that's getting him over, and like I say, I'm just more excited to get him back on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have not seen him wrestle.
Yeah.
Which I think is long overdue. I think they got to go fix it. They got to fix that.
And then your main event was an Intercontinental Championship match between Braun Breaker and Finn Balor that, let's not forget, was set up by Dominic Mysterio. And emerging victorious through shenanigans, although, hey, wasn't exactly Finn's fault. Braun Breaker defeated Finn Balor to retain his Intercontinental Championship, but that was, of course, because the Judgment Day came out with Carlito, Dominic Mysterio. Tried to interfere. Dominic Mysterio ended up costing Finn the match because he accidentally knocked Finn onto the turnbuckle. Some would say accidentally. I would say otherwise. Look at recent history and his actions. Oh, it's an accident. It wasn't an accident. I think this is another one of those instances. And we're going to get the Judgment Day breakup here. I don't know if it's going to be soon. I don't know if it's going to be down the road, but they're kind of further planting those seeds because Finn already, from what you can see in the backstage segments, doesn't trust any of them at all. This is not going to help matters.
It's not. I think this is just going to set up him versus Dom at Mania.
I think so.
Which I'm fine with. I think in this situation, it makes sense. I don't struggle with this at all.
No, I don't either.
It's just what's going to happen with the Judgment Day after.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because either you do one of two things. Either you turn the Judgment Day face, which I don't like.
No.
Or you have to give them somebody on that roster to make the head of the group. Karrion Kross would make sense here.
Sure.
I think would make a lot more sense than people realize.
Sure.
However, if it's not him, you have to bring in someone like an Aleister Black.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they're going to.
No, I mean, they're teasing him on SmackDown, so presumably he's going to go to SmackDown.
Well, Zelina Vega's over there now.
Yeah,
his
right.
real-life wife. So,
Right.
And they don't separate couples, which is smart.
You know who they could add, because he posted on social media the other day, don't ask me what that, I have to look it up, but he just said waiting in a photo of himself. El Idolo.
I mean, Andrade would make sense, but it's like, what do you want to do with this group? Because
Sure.
like you had, he was trying to recruit the one gentleman from Los Garza,
Oh, yeah.
Umberto.
Yeah.
So is that still a thing? It's like,
Right.
I guess there's just a lot of moving parts going on here, but I think at the end of the day, as long as you're getting Dominic on TV, Finn, you got to do something with. I don't think the Judgment Day has worked out in his favor. He's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle there.
Yeah.
I think you kind of write it off that him and JD can go do whatever they want to do after. Carlito, I don't know what you do with him in the Judgment Day. Let Liv go be Liv, and then put Dom, Dom can be Dom.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need everybody in a faction.
The only other thing left up in the air, what the heck's going to happen to R-Truth?
Well, the eventual confrontation he has with John Cena will be heartbreaking.
Man is spiraling right now.
Yeah. So when that happens, that will be must-watch TV. But before we let everybody go from the wrestling talk, there is an announcement we have to pass along.
Yeah, so that came to us courtesy of the folks over at WWE, and that it was announced a couple days ago that on Saturday, May 10th, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, emanating from St. Louis in the United States, Backlash is going to be taking place. And that it has been announced that it will feature Randy Orton, of course, St. Louis native, makes sense. But that also John Cena is going to make his first Backlash appearance since 2009.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So for the first time in a couple of years, Backlash is going to be stateside.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, the international crowds have been killing it right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, and you're seeing that when you watch Raw and SmackDown right now. So I would say I think the U.S. crowds have got a little challenge for them to come and bring it.
The gauntlet is certainly laid at their feet.
Yeah, but it's cool to see, though, Backlash is back in the States because obviously after with the events of WrestleMania, there's going to be a lot of social media buzz going on.
A lot of eyes on the product.
Yep, so Backlash has to deliver as much as the granddaddy of all does in April. That all said, hit us up on the hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about the WWE European Tour as it stands right now? What has stood out to you? What has not? And what do you think about Backlash being back in the USA? Let's talk about it, shall we? And if you even want more wrestling content, Wrestling Night Live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Nerd Initiative YouTube. That all said, we're going to get our last breakout. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sidemen Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna go.
The content you are listening to is part of the Nerd Initiative Podcast Network. For more info about the home of pop culture positivity, check out nerdinitiative.com.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. First of which is obviously the local minute and looking at the standings for the Federal Prospects Hockey League. Of course, the league where our local Binghamton Black Bears play in the Empire Division, still in first place, handedly, might I add. Through 48 games played, they have a record of 37 wins, 5 losses, 1 in overtime, 1 loss in overtime, and then 3 overtime wins and 2 shootout wins. In total, they have 122 points. They have handedly clinched the division. Behind them in second place with 84 points and also clinching a playoff spot Danbury. Third place, also clinching a playoff spot with 78 points, Port Huron. Fourth place is Watertown. Fifth place is Fraser. Sixth place is Poughkeepsie. And last place is Danville. Season to forget for those fine folks if you look at the standings. Over on the other side with the Continental Division, you got a couple playoff clinches, playoff spots clinched. You got Winston-Salem clinching a spot, and then Athens, Georgia clinching a playoff spot. Looking at the schedule from this past week, you had a couple games go on, first of which was Friday, March 14th, 7 o'clock Eastern, where they were at home against the Danbury Hat-Tricks. Won that game by the final score of 4-3. Gritty win on Saturday against the Carolina Thunderbirds, where they won by the final score of 1-0. Got a couple games on the road this upcoming weekend. Friday, March 21st, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. They're on the road playing the Watertown Wolves. Saturday, March 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. They're on the road playing the Watertown Wolves. Don't worry, folks, because they will return home this upcoming Friday, March 28th, 7 o'clock Eastern, against the Danbury Hat-Tricks, where we should note it is Education Appreciation Night at the arena. So for more tickets, information, all that good stuff, BinghamtonBlackBears.com.
Yeah, Black Bears had a little controversy with some suspensions
Oh,
going
my
on.
Lord, yeah.
So, but it looks like they're kind of getting through it.
They're appealing it so they can play, but we're waiting on the judgment.
Yeah, it's kind of a little crazy going on. I mean,
Yeah.
the footage was making around here locally.
It didn't look that bad, though.
It didn't look bad. I think the official press release from the league office, to paraphrase, was, yeah, you guys didn't start it, but you took it to a different level. Mm-hmm. And I think that rubbed the team the wrong way. There's been a lot of back and forth, so we'll just have to hopefully this won't be a distraction going into the playoffs.
Yep. Then we got to talk some NFL news because, well, speculation as to what's going to happen with the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins is over, and holy shit, they found their piggy bank. Because according to Fox Sports Sunday, on Sunday, it was announced that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins signed a new contract, Chase agreeing to a 4-year, $161 million deal, includes 112 of it guaranteed. 112 million, folks, not $112. T. Higgins' deal is a 4-year, $115 million deal, guaranteed for the first 2 years. Good Lord. Chase's deal has an AAV of $40.25 million, setting an NFL record for the highest average annual salary for a non-quarterback. So, Myles Garrett, eat your goddamn heart out. The bunch of years of negotiations between the two players. Joe Burrow did tell ESPN in January, quote, "We have several guys like Chase who have stepped up for us and deserve to be paid for what they're worth," close quote. I would say, yeah, they're paid what they're worth.
They're paid what they're worth, but I guess here's the question mark I have.
Mm-hmm.
Between those two gentlemen and Burrow, you have tied up how many millions of your cap space to 3 players?
I can look it up, assuming it's updated.
Right. So that all said, how are you expecting to build a team, around this 3 contracts?
Let me do some math here.
Because these 3 contracts are going to literally make it like the super team that was in Miami when it was Wade, Bosch, and James. And you're going to have to get players to come in and play defense for league minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, you are going to have to sit there and hope that you drop 50 and you can hold somebody not to drop 57 on you a game.
Mm-hmm. So collectively, between the Joe Burrow, it is updated, by the way, the Spotrac.com cap table for the Cincinnati Bengals. Unsurprisingly, the top 3 players that are on the active roster cap for the Cincinnati Bengals are Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. In that order. So collectively, the cap hit these gentlemen are doing, and I'm using round numbers, I'm not adding up every single number, but collectively, they're like a $91 million cap hit between the 3. And when you factor in the cap hit percentage for the team collectively, they're a 33.7% cap hit.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, so literally a third of your salary is going to those 3 players.
And this is why, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it right now, Cincinnati's not going to get back to the Super Bowl.
No, especially with that division as tough as it is.
Exactly. You need to have a balanced team go out there.
Mm-hmm.
That team isn't balanced. Their defense was suspect this past season.
Yeah.
And that's why they lost a lot of close games, remember, and that's how they didn't make the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
So now you have literally tied up so much cap space that you're literally going to have to hope that you can get the ball with the last 2 minutes left and score down the field. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to maintain.
Yeah.
I mean, like, listen, I'm happy for Cincinnati fans. I know that they wanted both wide receivers back, but that's the problem with the salary cap.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, in like comparison, Matt Milano restructured his contract, but now he's going to be a free agent next year. But he did it to help the team out. Now, granted, could the Bills re-sign him? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to. So it's the tough thing about the salary cap is why we all watch and there's so much parity, but way too much money. Way too
agreed 110%. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Then we got to talk a little bit of baseball because technically the Major League Baseball season did kick off this morning, although admittedly it's only going to be 2 games because the LA Dodgers and the Chicago Cubs are over in Japan and they kicked off the Tokyo series. Why? Well, there's a bunch of Japanese national players on both teams, and there's a lot of interest overseas there. A couple interesting things that took place with this game, and I'm getting this from Sarah Langs on Twitter because if you want a statistician to follow on Twitter for baseball, Sarah Langs is it.
Yes.
She did say Yoshinobu. So the starting pitchers were Shota Imanga for the Chicago Cubs and Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the LA Dodgers. This was the first matchup of Japanese-born starting pitchers in a regular season Major League Baseball game in the Tokyo Dome. Eat your heart out, Dave Meltzer. And this was also the first matchup between Japanese-born starting pitchers in an opening day game for Major League Baseball, period. Couple interesting. So then you had the game go down. LA Dodgers ended up winning the game 4-1. Yamamoto went 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. So he's going to be an absolute fucking problem this year. One to keep an eye out on though, because the next game takes place tomorrow as we record 6:10 a.m. Eastern FS1. Max Muncy on the Dodgers currently has at least 1 hit in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and South Korea. If he gets a hit in Japan, he joined a list of players including Xander Bogaerts, Paul Goldschmidt, and Eduardo Alfonso as having a hit in 5 countries or / territories, which is absolutely insane to think
wild.
of. I don't root for many Dodgers. I'm rooting for Max Muncy because that's an absolutely insane stat. But yeah, if you're up at 6:10 a.m. Eastern and looking for something to watch, hey, you got a baseball game on.
Yeah, Pokemon entrance was wild.
That was nuts.
That was crazy.
That was awesome.
Yeah, finishing out this edition of the ODPH, though, got to talk a little UFC.
Yeah.
So this past weekend was UFC Fight Night, and Martin Vettori, did not pull off the win as we thought. Roman Dolidze pulled out the decision.
Yeah.
So this was a little wild to see take place. I thought it was going to go down more in his favor. It did not, so that kind of throws a little curveball into the mix. And then obviously we got a big fight coming up this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Pat.
Yeah, so taking place this upcoming, what day of the week? Is that March 22nd? That would be a Saturday from the O2 Arena in London, England. Check your local listings what time that's going to be on. A couple fights on the main card. First, notably of which you've got in the welterweight division, Gunnar Nelson taking on Kevin Holland.
That's going to be a fun match.
Yeah. Light heavyweight division, Jan Blachowicz taking on Carlos Ulberg. And then in the main event, welterweight division, Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady.
Brady has got a big step up in challenge. Edwards, listen, we say he's very technical. He's going to not get rattled too easily. This is going to be a big bout for him if he really wants to make some noise. I do like Edwards in this, but if Brady pulls off the upset, I would not be super shocked. But Edwards needs to have a flawless fight for this one. And then in the light heavyweight division, obviously with the shakeup that went down, that we already saw, we're possibly talking an immediate rematch.
Well, if the winner of that fight gets his wish, because Muhammad Ankalaev, who of course won the light heavyweight division title from Alex Pereira at UFC 313 a couple weeks ago, posted on Twitter today as we record, quote, "Alex, when you're ready to go again, you deserve this." Close quote.
Well, I understand the reason why. It's a big payday, but I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, if he gets his way, well we know what's going, because I know we were speculating what the hell's going to happen. Well, we might have an answer if he gets his wish.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. But Blachowicz versus Ulberg, that is going to be possible title contention.
You would think so, yeah.
So, and this one, Blachowicz is still finding the fountain of youth, so it's hard to go against him.
Yeah.
So I'll go with him for this one. I was going to say this is going to be a decision. Like, this card could be a lot of decisions, except I think the Gunnar Nelson-Kevin Holland fight is going to be I think Gunnar is going to win outright.
Okay.
But you have to wait and see. But like I say, UFC's got a lot of things happening. This one's been a little bit snake bit, if you will. Yeah. Because this was originally supposed to be JDM versus Edwards. That got canceled. Nunez versus Molly McMahon. That got canceled.
Yep.
So Molly McMahon is slated to fight Alexia Theranova.
Newcomer to the promotion.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's going to be a solid night of fights, so you definitely want to go check that out, and we'll be recapping that as we go, because then we're going to start heading into more, like I say, the UFC has got so many fights lined up. I think they're still on that streak of 14 weeks in a row?
So they got the card coming up this weekend, which is March 22nd. They got another one, which is UFC on ESPN, March 29th. They got another one on ESPN, which is on April 5th. Then they've got UFC 314 on April 12th. Then they got then they got a week off or so, because after the UFC 314, there is a UFC on ESPN card, but that's April 26th.
Yeah, see, I got to relax, folks, and get all set on for that action. So don't mind me as I'm stretching here. But, yeah, that's going to be some really good fights coming up. Because, obviously, it's scary to think how fast International Fight Week is coming.
Oh, my Lord, yeah.
But we have a lot of time to talk in between then. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk, ODPHpodcast.com is the place you got to go. That is it for this week in sports. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Fuck the Astros.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.
Such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn would be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Don't know that I believe in the old time fable. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Talk to me. Talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know.